please send me a theme song, 'cause we don't really have a theme song, and we could really use a theme song. Send us a song. I welcome you wherever you may sit from my home that sits on Treaty 8 land, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree and Dene. This territory is home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta within the historical Northwest Métis homeland. I thank the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who have lived in and cared for these lands for generations. Tremendously grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. I make this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory I reside on. Hi, everybody. It's me, Alyssa, here for our Poetry Cafe. It's becoming kind of the tradition these days that you'll be hearing mostly from me. I'm thinking that next month that will be a little bit different. I think I have a few guests that are very interested. They've just been having busy summers. So for those guests, I hope that I do welcome you next or soon. And until then, you get more of me, and that's just lovely. So today for the Poetry Cafe, the theme is fear. I don't remember why I chose this theme. I remember it was at the last virtual variety night that I did. And I know I was doing my brainstorm about a lot of things going on in my head. And so I think it was mostly just fear of failure that I was feeling at that moment. Like that I might fail my daughter when preparing her for the world ahead, or that I might fail myself. I think that's why I came up with the theme. Don't really remember, but today was a very, very quick put together poem that I have for you today. So I will, as per usual, read a sonnet from William Shakespeare. This time it's sonnet number 9. So it's a sonnet that has the word fear in it. And I quite like this one, and it gave me a great idea that I'll talk about a little bit later. Sonnet 9. Is it for fear to wet a widow's eye that thou consumest thyself in single life? Ah, if thou, issueless, shalt hap to die, the world will wail thee like a makeless wife. The world will be thy widow and still weep that thou no form of thee hast left behind, even when private widow well may keep by children's eyes her husband's shape in mind. Look what an unthrift in the world doth spend, shifts but his place, for still the world enjoys it, but beauty's waste hath in the world an end. And kept unused, the user so destroys it. No love toward another's in that bosom sits, that on himself such murderous shame commits. Yeah, so I really enjoyed that one. It's, I think, a letter to a young person, a letter to a youth who is remaining single, and yeah, wondering, and the speaker wondering if that is due to fear, and more just kind of asking why, and saying that this person should exist again in his child. A very, very dear friend of mine had a baby this week. And so I felt like that was really fitting because I just feel like this woman, I'm just so happy that the world gets more of her in her two little kitties. And I'm really, I'm far away from her right now, but I really, really cannot wait to meet her wee one. So, on to my poem. Okay, so like I said, I didn't spend as much time as I can sometimes. Like sometimes I like to sit for an hour or so, and I did not have the time today. I was working and parenting, and I'm trying after last week's brainstorm. I've been trying to implement some strategies to do some baby steps for executive functioning work for both me and my daughter. And so that means that I have less time available to write poems. And actually, it's not that I have less time. It's just that the time that I used to spend doing it, I am now earmarked for something else. And I slept in the time I should have been doing it probably, because I could have written it on a different night, but I didn't. I wrote it today, which I kind of like. Like I kind of like to see what comes. Maybe on a future poetry cafe, I can sort of rework some of the quickly written poems to see what comes of them. That might be a really fun idea. Yeah, so I will read to you my poem. It is so far untitled. I just put fear because that was the theme. The first part doesn't really have anything to do with the last sort of two sections. Yeah, this is just a beginning of an idea, I think, on fear. The first thing you should know about me is that I am afraid of a lot of things. And while that lot of things that I am afraid of has gotten much smaller over time, it is still large enough now to be called a lot. But along with this knowledge, you should also know that only the teeniest slice of my memory sack has anything scary in it at all. What I mean is, my life has been safe. It has been so safe, I haven't needed to be afraid of anything that is actually scary. Or maybe I chose to focus my fear on safer things so that all of the real terror of the world would be beyond my reach. Regardless, I used to lay in my top bunk at night, unable to sleep. I was afraid. At least that's how I tell the story. I don't really remember feeling afraid. I remember thinking about a rhinoceros, escaped from the zoo and out for revenge, charging down the quiet cul-de-sac in the southeast corner of the city where my neighbors and my playmates and my family slept, and where I lay wide awake, waiting, with my blanket pulled up to my chin as if it would be enough. The rhinoceros took a wide turn down my street, its feet thundering against the asphalt. It veers suddenly to the large picture window at the front of my house and crashes through. No one else is awake to hear it. And I am frozen in my bed. The pounding in my chest, matching the pounding of the rhinoceros hooves on the carpet. Maybe the rhinoceros can smell my inability to spring forth and shield my brother dreaming peacefully in the bunk below. Or maybe it hears me holding my breath. Or perhaps there is a beacon of energy that points the rhinoceros in my direction, something that makes me special, or strange or singled out in some way, and perchance that is why the rhinoceros chooses my room and leaves my sisters alone, and chooses me and leaves my brother alone, and runs me through with his horn. I remember thinking about endless things and getting this feeling in my chest that felt like nothing was going to be okay. Thinking out at an ocean beyond the curve of the earth, thinking down in a deep spring where the light ends before the water ends, thinking up into space and feeling as small as I have ever felt. Thinking about how many numbers there are between the first and the last. Give me a minute to catch my breath. I can only think about infinity for the briefest of moments before I would panic and find something tangible to count on. I'm not sure if that is what my fear of death is about, but I suspect so. Because sometime between being afraid of the rhinoceros and getting boobs, my dad was working, building a gas station, and stood on the back of a truck that exploded beneath his feet. And in the months that followed, the ground below my feet seemed not so solid, sometimes squishy, sometimes gone. Just an endless space between me and the other end of the planet. And beyond that, a whole universe. And all of that space was easy to think about compared to thinking about when I would get to see my dad again and smell him and hear him say my name and hold me on his lap and make me feel like there was nothing in the world to be scared of. Thank you. So yeah, I hope to expand a bit more on that and craft it a little bit. I think that would be fun. It looks like I have a visitor who had gotten out of her bed. Hello, Matilda.
Hi, Mom. I just have to ask you a question when you're done.
I'm not going to be done for a bit, but I'll check on you when I am. What's your question?
I want my BTS
I don't know what that is.
snooze time snack.
You have to go get it yourself tonight, honey, or you can wait till I'm finished. But you can't be naked in the house, honey, because we have workers coming.
Why did you have to announce that?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry about that, guys. Little pause, little intermesh. Yeah, so I have my bathroom, some work being done on my bathroom, and it has been quite a while that it's been going. I know that that's kind of expected, but I just didn't really know how long it would be. I am eager for it to be done. But the gentleman who's working on it comes kind of in the evenings once he's done his work, and it's important that my daughter is clothed when the workers are here. She is annoyed with me that I mentioned she was naked. But whatever. So where was I? Oh yes, I told you my poem. I also earlier had read Shakespeare's Sonnet Number 9, which I said gave me an idea. Now, it wasn't really that sonnet in particular that gave me the idea. It was more that sometimes it feels like, or I used to read his sonnets quite a bit. And it seemed like I would just like randomly pick one, and it would always be the one that I just needed to hear at that moment. Like dealing with the specific kind of love that I needed to or that I was wrestling with or something, like what love related question I was dealing with. I spent a lot of time not really understanding what Shakespeare's sonnets were about. I did do a few Shakespeare plays in my day and in my youth, and so that really helped being able to kind of parse out what that means, like what the words mean. I still sometimes struggle with understanding some of it, but I have I think a pretty good handle on most of them. But I really like the different sort of relationships that I can imagine, and the different like big teen questions. Often I feel like they're teen questions, but sometimes not. That Shakespeare's sonnets bring up. So today, when I was looking through it, I had an idea about kind of seeing if I could distill the sentiment of the sonnet into like kind of just the basics of like who is talking to who and what are they helping them through, because I feel like that's the tone in most of them, is like either helping somebody through something or like trying to teach them some big lesson that will help the kind of love that they're struggling with make more sense. I have not been talking about this idea out loud, which I often do. I'll like screen ideas by talking them through in my car out loud. So I haven't done that yet. So this is what it sounds like when I do that. Sometimes it doesn't make any sense at all. Like sometimes the idea is like sounds fine, but then when you really like look into it, you're like, that doesn't make sense. I really enjoy iambic pentameter. I think I talked about that at a previous poetry cafe. I like it because I used to find it pretty a, a really cool way to write poetry, because suddenly when I would write that way, it felt like I knew what the right answer was. Like, because you had this really strict form, if you had chosen the right words, then it was like a puzzle that would like suddenly click together and you'd see the picture. And so it felt like there was a right answer, which poetry often doesn't really feel like there's a right answer. So I really liked that. There was a time in my 20s where I wrote a play called Rosaline, which maybe we'll do on one of our play reading virtual variety nights. Maybe I'll get a couple people to help me read it and just kind of revisit it. And that play was one of those. I had learned about the character of Rosaline from Romeo and Juliet, who Romeo is so in love with at the very beginning of the play, and it kind of highlights his kind of fickle, impulsive nature, and because he's so madly in love with her and just die for her, and then goes to a party to see her, and then sees Juliet and forgets all about her and doesn't really mention her again. I think at one other part in Romeo and Juliet, the priest or something is asking him, "Oh, like you mean Rosalind?" He's like, "Who?" Like he just completely forgot about her. And I just found that compelling, that idea. And so I wanted to write a play about her, but I hadn't really like. I knew the basic story of Romeo and Juliet, and I think I had read it in school, but I didn't pay that much attention. And so when I was wanting to write this play, I first wrote a whole bunch just based on my feeling of what I wanted her to be like, and then I actually read the play, and she like was the one who had been like, "No, I'm gonna go be a nun. Not interested in you. Thank you. Goodbye." So I was kind of writing from the perspective of like that she had been this scorned woman who like just wanted to be with Romeo, and then he had moved on. And I didn't really realize that, like, maybe that she'd been playing hard to get or something, but I didn't really realize that she had no interest in him at all. But anyway, so then I did write a play in which Rosalind does get jealous of the love story of Romeo and Juliet, even though maybe she wasn't jealous of Juliet per se. Like, not Juliet because she got to be with Romeo, but Juliet because she got to go down in history as this woman who, like, she is the lover, like the love interest kind of. And so that sort of notoriety is what made the Rosaline in my play kind of jealous. That was supposed to be an example of how I like think out loud sometimes. Like when I was thinking about this play, I was like thinking, and oh, this is gonna be great, blah blah blah. And then when I came down to like the nuts and bolts of it, I was like, oh, that doesn't really make sense how I had that in my mind before. Let's rework that. So that may be what this sonnet idea is. I basically want to go through the 154. I think it's 154 or 56. I think it's 154 sonnets, and kind of just break down some real like brief information about them, and then see if there's any sort of story that might emerge that I could maybe turn into another play. I think that's all I have for you today. It was lovely, lovely as always seeing you. Please, if you have anything that you would like to share, email me at virtualvarietynight.ca. And no, that's wrong. virtualvarietynight@gmail.com. So forget what I just said. Even my website is virtualvarietynight.com, not .ca. And you can join me next week for singing with Alyssa next week. If you have a song, I would love for more people to be able to share some songs, because I, as we well know, am not exactly a musician and not exactly a songwriter. My daughter's really interested though in songwriting, so maybe I'll see if I can get her to record something for you guys to share, so you can kind of see how her brain works, because it is phenomenal. Maybe I'll just end on another Shakespeare sonnet, because this is one where when I was in school, we had to pick one to learn, so that if we ever just needed some verse or whatever, we would just have something memorized, so that we weren't trying to like make something up, and we just had some text memorized. So this is one that I learned, and it was sonnet number 37. If any of you who are watching know me, you'll know kind of, especially if you knew me a long time ago, you'll kind of understand a little bit about why I would have chosen sonnet 37. I specifically chose it because it was sonnet 37. I didn't read through a bunch and then pick. I wanted to pick that one because I had an interesting relationship with the number 37 in my teens and 20s. I felt like it was stalking me. It was everywhere that I was. They did eventually make a movie with it was Jim Carrey was in a movie called 23, which was really, really similar to my experience with 37, except for, of course, they chose the wrong number. I recently met somebody like where I just had to give my email address, which my personal email address has the number 37 in it. And he was like, hey, 37, that's my favorite number. And so it had been a while since I had connected with somebody about a frequently noticed number. Although in my younger days, I did meet a fair amount of people who shared frequently observed number, like some sort of relationship with that. Anyway, so that was why I chose sonnet 37. And then as it turned out, it really spoke to me deeply about what my dad might be thinking if he still has a thinking soul or whatever. Anyway, Sonnet 37. As a decrepit father takes delight to see his active child do deeds of youth, so I, made lame by fortune's dearest spite, take all my comfort of thy worth and truth. For whether beauty, birth, or wealth, or wit, or any of these all, or more, entitled in their parts do crowned sit, I make my love engrafted to this store. So then I am not lame, poor, nor despised, whilst that the shadow doth such substance give, that I in thy abundance am sufficed, and by a part of all thy glory live. Look what is best. That best I wish for thee. This wish I have, then 10 times happy me. Thank you. So yeah, for me, that poem is about someone who dies and is looking at his those he left behind, kind of going, yeah, I didn't get to do all of this stuff, so all of the great stuff that you're going to go put out in the world, I'm going to take a bit of credit for that. And I will be so lucky if you end up happy. That's what's going to make me feel fulfilled. If you do, your life leads you to happy. Anyway, I was thrilled to have one day found that sonnet while I was leafing through 37. And that's kind of what started my interest in sonnets, Shakespeare sonnets in general. Okay, now for real, that's all I've got for you. I will see you next week at 8 o'clock Alberta time for Virtual Variety Night Song Edition.
We need a theme song, so could you please send me a theme song? 'Cause we don't really have a theme song, and we could really use a theme song. Send us a song.